Line went dead. His focus was on Olivia, on the woman who had shattered him once and now lay pale and motionless against him. He should have been furious, should have wanted to let her go, to let her suffer the consequences of her choices, but none of that mattered in this moment, because no matter how much he hated her for leaving, no matter how much she had betrayed him, another truth remained. Once Olivia had been his world, and now he might be losing her all over again. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and sterile air, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside Daniel's chest. He sat rigid in the uncomfortable waiting room chair, fingers steepled in front of him, elbows braced on his knees as he stared at the cold white tiles. The echo of Olivia's name being called over the intercom felt surreal, like he had been transported to another time, one where she was still his wife, where they still had a future. But that wasn't reality. Reality was that she had collapsed in his arms, unconscious, her body weak and unresponsive. Reality was that he had spent the last 2 hours pacing the halls of the hospital, waiting for a doctor to tell him something, anything. And when the door finally opened, when a middle-aged man in a white coat stepped out with that practiced look of gentle detachment, Daniel knew before he even spoke that the news wouldn't be good. "Mr. Whitmore," the doctor's voice was careful, measured, as though bracing for impact. "Can we talk in private?" Daniel rose to his feet, his pulse a steady drum against his temples. He followed the doctor down the corridor, past nurses moving with quiet urgency, past beeping machines and hushed voices. They stepped into a consultation room, and when the door clicked shut behind them, the air felt heavier, suffocating. "How bad is it?" Daniel asked, his voice sharper than he intended, but he didn't care. He had spent too many years controlling his emotions, burying them beneath layers of steel and ice. But this wasn't something he could contain. The doctor exhaled, folding his arms. "Late-stage leukemia. She's known for a while, but based on what we're seeing, she's deteriorating faster than expected. If she continues refusing intensive treatment, she may only have a few months left." The words landed like a blow to the chest. Daniel's first instinct was to reject them, to call it a mistake, but doctors didn't deliver news like this unless they were sure. He swallowed, his throat dry. "She didn't tell me. From what I understand, she's kept this from almost everyone." The doctor said at this stage chemotherapy would only slow it down if she had started treatment earlier. "Well, that's not where we are now." Daniel's hands curled into fists at his side. 7 years of silence, of anger, of believing she had moved on while he had rebuilt himself from the ground up. But the truth was uglier than he had imagined. Olivia hadn't just left him behind, she had been fighting a battle he never knew about, and she had lost. "Can I see her?" he asked, his voice quieter now. The doctor nodded. "She's awake, but be gentle, Mr. Whitmore. She's running out of time." Daniel walked down the hall with slow, deliberate steps, his heart pounding harder with every inch he closed between them. When he stepped into her room, the sight of her stole the breath from his lungs. Olivia lay in the hospital bed, the fluorescent lights casting shadows across her pale skin, and dripped steadily into her arm. And she looked smaller than he remembered, more fragile, as if the weight of her illness had hollowed her out from the inside. But her eyes, those deep familiar eyes, still held fire when they landed on him. "You stay," she murmured, her voice coarse but laced with something close to relief. Daniel shut the door behind him, shoving his hands into his pockets to keep them from shaking. "I wasn't going to just leave you unconscious in the middle of my office." A tired smile ghosted her lips. "No, I suppose you wouldn't." The room was silent for a moment, the tension thick. Daniel could still feel the lingering remnants of his anger, but it was tangled now with something more complicated. He had spent years resenting her for walking away, and yet standing here looking at her like this, he realized that no amount of rage could change what was happening to her. No amount of power could buy her more time. "You should have told me," he said, his voice raw. "About the cancer?" "About..." He stopped himself, jaw tightening him. She closed her eyes for a brief moment before looking back at him. "I know, but I was a coward," Daniel scoffed, shaking his head. Said, "That's not an excuse. I didn't think you'd forgive me." Olivia swallowed hard, looking down at her hands, at the thin foreline running into her veins. "And maybe I didn't want to hear you tell me you never wanted to see me again. I thought I could live with my mistakes, but when I started getting sick, when I knew I wouldn't be around much longer, I couldn't let him grow up never knowing the truth." Daniel stepped closer, his pulse hammering at his temples. "Tell me about him." Olivia's lips parted slightly, as if she wasn't sure where to begin. "His name is Caleb. He just turned 6." Her eyes softened, and despite the exhaustion in her face there was a light that hadn't been there a moment ago. "He's smart, so smart, loves books, always asking questions, and kind. He's got this way of seeing the good in people even when they don't see it in themselves." Daniel let out a slow breath, something inside him twisting painfully. He